Hey guys, welcome. Shitcoin convention. Thank you guys for being here and showing up and doing all the good things. I'm a Serviver Man and got too close to a microphone. So to calm down, everybody. It's gonna happen. So today we're talking about the Renaissance and the similarities and differences between the Renaissance and crypto. The crypto Renaissance, I've been hearing a lot of digital Renaissance being thrown around out here in the zeitgeist, on Twitter Spaces, inside Discords, and on the Clubhouse. I've heard digital Renaissance, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the Renaissance, or what we think of as the Renaissance. So, back in the 15th and 16th century, there was what we consider in America and Europe as the Renaissance, but it is actually the European Renaissance, because Renaissance means resurgence. So the resurgence of a past way of thinking, which inside the European Renaissance was the Greek and Roman thinking, that was brought into the culture by trade. And what was happening at the time was Italy, and Venice in particular, was trading with the Ottoman Empire. And inside Italy, they were making clothes. And these clothes were dyed. And they were dyed with a mineral called alum. So alum is this mineral that dyes clothes. And if you see paintings and things from the Renaissance, you see people wearing these clothes. So you see people wearing these bright colored clothing. That was because of alum. Alum was a mineral that was being traded to the Italians, and with it came a lot of knowledge. And knowledge is what brings artists and money and knowledge. So the Ottomans were basically trading with the Italians for these clothes and trading them in pepper and in knowledge, and because they had scribes. And these scribes were finding past works from Greek and Roman thinkers and bringing them into Europe, which was then causing the money to come in, and the money brought the artists, and the artists are what we see today, the remnants of their culture. So what ended up happening in Europe is that the Pope's nephew, Giovanni de Satrios, found a bunch of mountains filled with this alum, and gave the Pope the rights, or asked the Pope to mine this alum out of these mountains. And when he did that, he hired a family, which you might know, which is the Medici family. And the Medici family is what brought a lot of these cultural works into Europe at the time. So over the course of like 250 years, these Medici brought in all of these artists and culturalists, painters, and architects, looking at these past works, and they created the culture that we see and we reminisce on in our culture today. Humanism was one of the things that was developed during the Renaissance, and also like a republic. And how we founded our nation as a republic was brought on by the European Renaissance. Once again, this is all what we reference when we say the digital Renaissance in our country and the European countries in particular. But Renaissance isn't like a state of time. It's not just like a point in time. People don't necessarily know they're inside of a Renaissance. Like when you found your first computer, you didn't know that you were inside of a Renaissance. But now, after about 100 years of development of a computer based on like World War II technology, I can sort of see the similarities between the digital Renaissance, or creation of the computer, and this alum Renaissance that would dye in clothes. You have two commodities that generated a lot of wealth because of trading. Now we have this digital Renaissance where we're trading data, right? This is the new gold, this is the new oil, this is the new alum, and with it comes money, and it comes culture, because when Newman comes up, things happen where the people who, wealth supports institutions that legitimize that wealth. So right now we're coming into this point where the wealth that's getting generated by the digital age, maybe through crypto, and that could be what we're seeing right now is this crypto renaissance, is this new financial sector that this money is being legitimized through, and bringing up this new culture with it, this digital culture, and now the crypto culture is like a subset of that. The marketplace is being set up, so instead of having Venice be where all the boats come from, or Venice and some other places in Italy where they're trading with the Ottoman Empire, and they're trading boats and they're trading wealth. Now you have Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Tezos, all boat builders, all tradesmen trading things on their platform, using their ships, their containers, they're moving it around, and now we as people get to have a ship's or fleet worth of trades on our phone. We can use that to our advantage and look at the Renaissance and look at what used to happen and what used to be, and use that history to see the circle that connects the history, the past to the present, to see kind of where you are, because right now you're inside of you're inside of something that's moving really quickly. It's hard to see. People in the Renaissance didn't say, hey, they didn't walk outside and say, I'm in the Renaissance. But now we look back on it and we come up with these important figures that then dictate a timeline of hundreds of years that say it's the Renaissance. America hasn't been a country it has been a country for about as long as the Renaissance was a period of time. So that also gives you a reflection of saying I'm only 100 years into the computer, the digital renaissance, and only 20 years in, less than 20 years into the crypto renaissance. So you're seeing these different styles of commodities being used to trade with people that then create a culture, and now we're inside of this new culture called crypto with its new financing system, DeFi, that was like the Medici financing people back in the Renaissance. You have the new artists, and these artists aren't just creating new things. They're not just creating holograms and they're pushing the edge of the newest technology, but we look back with nostalgia and create 8-bit things. Just like we're creating a hyper-focused Renaissance where we're resurging things that came out in the 70s and 80s instead of in the ancient Greek times. So we do have this reflection of the Renaissance and looking back toward the past that was simpler. During the Renaissance, and thinking of simpler times, they too thought the same way, where the things of the past were something simpler and pure, and the things of the present are something that's scary and moving really fast. And so those are the similarities that I see between the Renaissance, or the European Renaissance, and our current marketplace, or the current state of the internet and digital and the crypto renaissance, and the reflections between those two things can give people that might not have the inclination to think about shitcoins or alternative coins as something viable. But we do see in the past that creating more and more new and different ways of trading is something that mankind generally benefits from, and also rewards. So that is something for you to think about here at the Shitcoin convention. That was my talk about the Renaissance and the digital creation of the new Renaissance. And if you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask about where we are, or anything that I may have gapped because I've been speaking up here, pulling this information together. Yeah.
Based on your research on the Renaissance and the analogies that we have in present day, what do you think is coming next?
Based on my research, thank you for the question. Based on my research of the Renaissance, what do I think is coming next? I think that markets are going to continue to stabilize themselves. So, what we see right now is a lot of money that's being basically created using financial vehicles. I think that money is going to start becoming legitimized by people that control that wealth, pumping it into culture. So like we're going to continue seeing artists being funded and culture and big works being created by these financial sectors that are taking in a lot of this money, because that was what happened with the Medici. They ended up financing a lot of the improvements inside of that system. Thank you. So I think that we're going to see more influx into culture to strengthen and legitimize the wealth that's being generated. Yes. The question was, thank you, was how do I reconcile the Renaissance with our cancer culture, editing, and all these different ways of taking expression, I think, and censoring it or disjointing it, creating some sort of disconnect between what's really being created and what's being shown to us. And I think that the means right now of communication is much higher than the rate of like communication that the people in the Renaissance were creating. So the Renaissance was typically, like the artists of the Renaissance were typically creating works around religion, because that was like what was hot on topic. So maybe that the Renaissance people were being influenced by the zeitgeist of their time. So like our people are going to continue being influenced by the zeitgeist of our time, and through the new ways of communicating, we'll get more of a true, like, ground level, because when you mint things, that creates a digital copy that is now going to, like, through the support of these encrypted ledgers, can live on without disturbance. So I'm guessing that the technology is censorship resistant in and of itself, so that the art that's being generated and created now has more resistance to censorship than it did before, but we might be seeing more censorship just because of the amount of information that we're constantly getting, and it's a narrative that you might want to like go down, so people go down that narrative. But I think the overall like state of the technology gives you just much more ability to like to keep things the way that they were presented originally, with a digital trace of any alterations that happen to it after the fact. More than if someone painted over something from the Renaissance because it looked weird and we never noticed, or we have to remove some paint to like get it back to original intention. Now that could be done digitally, and we could see the two alterations, and we would see when it happened. And it would be very difficult to remove all of that. But because there's so much information, it might be buried. Anyways, it's a great question. Thank you so much. Anyone else? I think I'm about done with time. Anyone else have any questions, concerns? Thank you so much, guys. I'm Serviver Man. Thank you. An independent artist. If you need art, please come speak to me. See you guys later.